topic is what we're going to look today is we're going to look at how to use connectors. Or there are more than 50 plus connectors available in Power Apps. So how do we use connectors? Then how do you connect your flows to Power Apps? How do you invoke flows through in Power Apps? And then the important thing is how do you create your custom connectors? Okay. And last time I know I had some issues showing you the responsiveness. So just to give that background, what I was missing in the um, last meeting is I just wanted to show that before I proceed with today's topic. So in last meeting, I was trying to do something with respect to responsiveness, but um, what I forgot to tell you is if you run this, then this app is not responsive anymore. To make this responsive, you have to actually play this app from outside. So if I play this app from outside, that's when it becomes really responsive. Otherwise, it's like if you're just playing it here for the debug purposes, then it's not that responsive. So see how it filled up the entire screen, right? And then it's now getting the data, and then
Yep.
it's occupying the entire screen. So now let's pop this up out.
Hey, Danish, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Uh, could you just tell me, like, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but what is this topic regarding? I think I missed a few starting minutes. If you can just tell me what it is about, I can catch up.
Yeah. So today we are going to look at the connector.
Okay.
Like
Sorry.
there
Yeah.
are 50 plus connectors. So we're going to look at the connector. We're also going to look at flow and how to connect flow with Power Apps. And then also the important thing that we're going to look at today is how to create your own custom connectors.
Thanks. Thanks, Danish.
Yeah. But I'm just giving a little background of what happened last week. So last week I was trying to show how the responsive design works, but it was not actually getting executed. The reason for that not getting executed was I was actually trying to directly play it over here. So when you actually play the app in this format, then it is not it doesn't take that responsiveness because it is running on top of the actual design interface. So to really test the responsiveness, what you have to do is you have to actually run the app directly like by clicking this, or you can click here and then say play. And then once you do that, then you can see how responsive it is. So it's the same code that I had used last time, but I was just not running it from outside. I was running it in the app itself. So if you see, this is all responsive now. So if I'm increasing it, then these all things are getting increased or decreased. But this is all using the same code that I had used last time. I just wanted to show you guys that it still works. It just works in a different way. Anyway, so getting back to today's topic. So first is the connectors. Now we have seen how to connect with CDS. Now connecting with CDS is out of the box. It's pretty straightforward. So if you go and expand this, you can see there are data sources. And in the data sources, you can see entities directly come up and then it shows your current environment. So you don't have to do anything and then you get access to all the entities from here itself. But if you see down here, there's connectors. And if you expand these connectors, you can see there are several other connectors that you can see. And one of the connector, there is also a connector called CDS again. Common data. Now it's not showing. Yeah. Mhm. No. Okay. Maybe I was looking at a different thing. So there are different kind of connectors. Now we have used Office 365 users connector, but you can use any connector you want. You can add a connector to import from Excel. You can add connector to SharePoint. So how do you use connectors is you just type in the data source and then you click on the connector, and then here you would get an option of how you want to connect to your data source. So do you want to directly connect to the cloud server, and depending on the connector you would get different inputs that you would have to provide.
So all these connectors are like read only?
What do you mean by read only?
I mean, you can pull the data and show, but can you write it back as well?
Some connectors have the functionality, so it depends from connectors to connectors. Like SharePoint or any Microsoft connector, that if you're using like SharePoint or if you're using anything else, you can get the data, update the data, create the data, both all CRUD operations. You can even delete the data, right? Um, for Salesforce, yes, it is available. In Salesforce, you can do all the CRUD operations. Some connectors are not that flexible. Like Office 365 user, I've not seen any connector where you can actually delete a user from using Office 365 user connector. So every connector has different options or different methods available.
Okay.
So let's go. And so SharePoint connector is unique, and that's why I wanted to show SharePoint connector. So SharePoint connector, normally if you see, SharePoint has different types, right? SharePoint, you can create a calendar, you can create a list, you can create a document location, you can create events. So those are the type of things that you can create in SharePoint. Now, from those things, or let's call those as types in SharePoint. So from all those types in SharePoint, the thing that we use in CRM, when we connect SharePoint to CRM, we use document locations, right? We use documents. We don't use list. We don't use events. We don't use calendars. We use documents. But the connectors do not work on the documents. So connectors only work on um, list type of things that you have created in the SharePoint. So if you go, say, like, if I go to this Fearless Gurus, I this documents is actually a list. So let me go to this location. I've never been to that location before. Ah. Site/Fearless Guru. And if you go to site contain, oh, this shows this library. That's strange. So I think so this is a new feature that they introduced. Yeah, but you don't get access to this library, you don't get access to this library, but you get access to this library for some reason. But basically what used to happen is you were not able to access the document library type. So what we used to do is we used to create a list type of asset in SharePoint, and then we can access the list type of assets in SharePoint over here. But I guess they have changed this recently, because see here it says choose a list, but somehow it's showing me a document location. But yeah, basically you just select a list or document location if it exists, and then you connect it. Now, if you are not able to see your document location, and if you're working with a document location, so there's a trick to it. And I've already blogged about it, so I will send it information via email, the link to the blog, where I've explained step by step how you need to create a document in list as a temporary storage, and then after it's been created in the list, then you move that attachment from list to document location using flows. And how to do that, it's a little bit tricky process, but I've already explained that in a blog. But if you have any questions after those, then just reply to that email or ping me, and then I can respond to your questions. Yeah. So then you connect to the connect to your list. Now in this case, we are connecting to a document location. And then how do you access this in your app? So to access this in your app, so let's say I want to display it on a label. Okay, so here in text, now what Power Apps does is whenever you add a connector, it would give its own name. So it would take the name of the, so say now we connected to document, right? So it took the name of that and then just gave the name to your connector. If I go back and if I add the connector again, so if I go to SharePoint again, same SharePoint, I'll go to the same location. I'll add this again. What it would do is it would add with the same name, but now because it already exists, it will do _1. Now when you're, and there's no way you can change this connection names as of today. Maybe there is already an idea out there that users have requested an ability to change the name of the connectors in the apps, but right now you cannot. So if you end up in this situation, then you have to make sure that you're using the right connectors. So there could be instances where you're connecting to say SharePoint location 1 and SharePoint location 2, but on both the location, the list name or document library name is same, then you would end up in this situation. And then there is no correct way to identify which one is what. The only way to identify is hovering it over, and then you can see the dataset name over here. So if this was say in a different location, then you would see a different location name over here. Now how to use it is, say if I want to use documents _1, then here I have to write documents _1. That would be my connection name. And when I do dot, then I would get all the functions that are available for that particular connector. So each connector would have different set of functions. So document SharePoint SharePoint library gives a different set of functions than Office 365 user or Outlook.com or SQL servers. Every connector would give you a different set of functions, and then each function would have its own parameters. And then they have made it really easy. So if say I want to use now this checkout is actually a data table, so it gives you data table, but there could be certain functions available over here. So let's try to see. There are no functions in this. Yeah, there are no functions in SharePoint, but Office 365 user has functions. So when you dot, so direct reports to manager, my profile version 2, and then now it makes us easy to give us the IntelliSense actually guides you what parameters it is expecting. So in this case, it is expecting a parameter with a JSON kind of format. So it's asking you to do a select and then a text, and then this text is some your username in the system. So no XYZ at akes.com, and then you close this, and then that's how this would work, right? Now this is returning a record, but I'm showing it um, on a label which does not accept record. So about me, and then there you go. Then it doesn't show any errors. So things like that. So each connector is different. Any questions on connectors? Okay, so let's move on to flow. So now we saw a lot of connectors over here. Flow has the same thing with the naming conventions as well. So if you're adding same flow with the same name, then you would end up in this situation again. But how do we add flows to Power Apps? So to add flows to Power Apps, you have to go to Actions, and then in Actions, you have to click on Flows. Now, there are two ways of creating flows for Power Apps. You can either create it from here itself, but when you're creating a flow directly from this button, and then you go and select your template, and then you create your flow, and once you save it, that flow would not be part of the solution. Even though your Canvas app is part of the solution, the flow that you create would not be part of the solution. So you have to make sure once you create the flow, go in the solution and then include the flow in the solution. Okay, that would help you for your ALM process or for deployment process. Now, and let's first create this. So you can select any template you want. So if you want to do anything custom, and then if you don't find anything in the template, you can select the first one. So the first one is just creating the Power App button, and then it just does nothing. It does a custom action over here. So there you go. Okay, so here is my Power App, and then you can add any custom actions here. Now I've not saved it, so unless until I save it, it won't appear over here. But I want to show you guys another way of creating flow without using this button. So say I already have a solution, and I go to the solution, and I want to use my solution, right? Okay, load solutions. Solutions don't want to load today. Anyway. So once you are in the solution, and this is what I've shown in the first session. Once you go to the solution, in the solution you can create a new component, and in the new component you can select flows, and then that flow would again take you to the same interface, and then you would have three options over there. You would have automated flow, instant flow, and scheduled flow. To create Power App, to create a flow compatible with Power App, you have to select instant flow. And when you select the instant flow, you give your flow name. So then test. And then here you can see there's an option for Power Apps. So you select that Power App option, and then you select create. It gives us the same interface that was provided from the earlier flow. So there are two ways of creating flows. One from this app, another one outside of the app directly from flow, but using the instant flow option, and then choosing the Power App trigger. Now once you create this, save it. We need at least one trigger. So let's do sending an email. So Outlook. Now Outlook connectors, there are two Outlook connectors. One is Office 365 Outlook, which is your organization Outlook or Exchange that we call. And then there's something called as Outlook.com, which is your personal one. Okay, just to keep in mind. Send an email. We'll send an email to myself. Okay, subject. Okay, so save. Once you save it, there you go. As soon as you save it, it's available over here. Now, there's a trick here as well. A lot of tricks. What happens is, and let me show you what happens. Now, what I'm going to do is this fill. I'm on fill, right? What it would do is, let me copy this because something is going to happen. Once I click it, it will try to add the flow to a random function. See, it added a flow to your screens on visible function. And then if there was a function written on visible, it would have overwritten it. So once you do undo, it goes away. So what normally I do is whenever I do this, I go to a button or a label and then do on select, because then I know, because it picks anything randomly. And if you have some logic written on that function, then you're lost, like the code would go away. So to prevent that from happening, what I do is I go to on select. I select this, keep my cursor over here, then go to flows and then click on flows. And what it does is, now I know that it's going to override, but I know exactly where it's going to override. Okay. And then I can actually copy it, put it in a notepad somewhere. And then once these things happen, which is annoying, then I can just remove this, add my code back in. And then once my code is back in, then I can use this like then test and then run. So now then test is my flow name. And if I go here, you can see that then test was added here in the data source. Okay, and then it's one, like you see all these data sources do not have spaces in them. And then Power App has a function called as run. Now now currently it doesn't take any parameters. So you just call run, it will execute the flow. But let's say I want to execute the flow, but I want to pass certain data or some selections that users have made. I want to pass that selections to the flow. And how is that possible? So to make that happen, let's first remove this and remove the connection as well, because we're going to add some parameters to it. So let's say I want to add the selected. So in this app, we have this contact details, right? So selected contact detail, the first selected contact detail is what I'm going to pass. Okay, so first selected contact name. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, if you can see here, you're getting a dynamic content which says ask in Power App. Now ask in Power App, whenever you use this, what happens is it would create a variable, but again, the variable name would be random. Like it's actually not random, but you cannot change it. You cannot specify your own name to the variable. How it creates the variable name is it will take this particular name. So it will take send, and then it will remove all the special characters, all the spaces from it, and it will create send an email v2, and it will put an underscore, and then prefix it or append it. Append it with the name of the attribute that you are adding the ask in Power Apps. So to make this correct, or to make your variable look nice, what I normally do is I normally go here, rename this particular task or action in such a way that my variable will look good. So I want my variable to say email contact first name. So now I know that my variable would be of the same name. I'm gonna just um, keep it like this, and I know it's gonna do underscore body. So I cannot help with this name, but that's fine. So there you go. So now it took email contact first name underscore body. I can go back here, and then now I'll say, okay, I want last name to be my next parameter. Okay, so space, and then now you don't see ask in Power App anymore. So to make that appear again, click on see more, which will give you this option again, and then you click on that again, then it would give you email contact last name underscore body. So now you're creating variables with your own desired names, and then you can go back and then rename this to whatever you want. Send email v2. Okay, and then what's the error? That's fine. Save it. Okay, now once you have saved it, and go back here. Now flow, remember we added the flow and then we removed it. That's why you are not seeing it in the data source anymore. So let's go and add it again. So it says adding, and there you go. It added the data set, and now you can see it gives you two parameters. Now these two parameters are again sequential. So first I added first name, the second I added last name. As many parameters you add in here, even if I delete it, it would still show up here. So if I go and I delete this parameter and I save it, I add this app again, it would still give me these two parameters because it saves it in its memory somewhere. So yeah, so I don't want to use it over here, right? So I'm gonna just remove it. I want to use it on a button click. Let's give a border to this. This is confusing. I don't like it. Okay, and now insert a button. Okay. And on select, I would say run and the first name. So first name would be my gallery one. Selected dot first name. Gallery one dot selected dot last name. That's it. Now let's reset everything and let's execute this once this completes resetting. Okay. Okay, there you go. So I've selected this. Oh, that. Okay, so Ionin Mecha is selected. Then I invoke flow. And then it invoked flow because now I'm not capturing the output and then I'm not doing anything with it. I won't know whether it's been invoked or not. But if I go here, I would see that it got invoked over here and it was succeeded. So if you go to the flow execution, you would see that the email was sent out. The body, first selected contact, Ionin Mecha. Yeah. Cool, right? Any questions so far?
So for this flow example, you have connected using Office 365, and so just for giggles, the email is the email on the address. Is that what it sends the email to?
No. I hard coded the email. So let me go to the edit. So I hard coded my email so that I don't send it to a random person. So I hard coded it to myself, but in the body, I'm sending the parameter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you declare variable on the top?
Yes. So that is a nice way of declaring variables. So I've also been following that strategy as well. So what I do is in the flow, when you click on action, you search for variable. And then and then here you can actually initialize a variable. And when you initialize a variable, you can actually rename this to whatever name you want for the variable. Give a name here, and then you can say ask in Power Apps. I mean, this is the variable you can use throughout the app.
Can we send a variable array as an array?
If
Like this
yes,
is kind of individual, like 1 and 2.
You can send an array. Yes. Yeah. So whatever you declare here,
array of string.
Yeah. This would be an array. There is a type
Okay.
array. So these would be
And,
the variable name, variable types.
Okay.
So for example, let me complete this. So if you go to button, right, and if you go here in run, this particular things are expecting a text data type. So in case if I send something else other than the text, then it would give me an error. So that, and how it declared the text is because of the data type of this particular attribute. Because this body is a text data type attribute, it declared these two parameters as text. But if you select array and then if you say ask in Power Apps, then it would create a parameter which is of type array. And then arrays, there is no array in Power Apps. So array is corresponding to tables. So then you have to create a table and then pass table as a parameter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions, Minal?
So sorry.
Sudhakar, 1 second. Minal also has some questions. So, okay, go.
So those variables which you declared with the second approach, will those be global variables, or is there any concept like local variable, global variable, or?
No, so in flows, there is no concept of local variables or global variables. Any variable you declare, you have to initialize on the top itself. So wherever you initialize your variables, going forward, only those would be available. They won't be available before that.
Okay. Are you planning to show Dynamics 365 connector today?
Dynamics 365 connector
means how to retrieve, like suppose on update of account, I want to retrieve some fields on the account and do something.
On the update of account, again, can you repeat the scenario?
On update of account, I want to suppose I want to email some to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to add details from that account record in that email, like first name, last name, address, something like that.
Okay, but that is not pertaining to Power Apps at all. That you could achieve everything through Flow without using Power Apps,
Oh, okay, yeah.
right? So
Uh,
you can trigger a flow on CDS. Don't use Dynamics 365 connector. Use CDS connectors. CDS connectors are are latest, and they have more functionalities than Dynamics 365 connector.
is okay. CDS is just for testing purpose, right?
No.
Will
So,
CDS connect to actual CRM?
so what you see here in environments, these are all CDS environments. So in the initial session, I had told you the architecture of entire Microsoft, right? So in base, you have Azure. On top of Azure, you have CDS as a platform. CDS as a platform is being used by CRM, is being used by model-driven apps, is being used by Power Apps, Flows, Power Virtual Agents. Everything is been running on CDS.
So we have to use CDS connected instead of 365.
Right.
Both are for same purpose
Right. So
mostly, right?
yeah, yes. So I'm actually this AKES training environment is actually a CRM environment, and if I go to this data sources, you can see, and if I go to entities, you can see this is a CDS connector. See, it shows here common data service connection.
Oh, okay. CDS, common data service. Okay.
Yeah. So everything is CDS going forward.
Will it show the custom entities as well?
Yes. Yeah, it does show custom entities. This one might not have, but yeah, it does show custom entities. You can just search over here and it would show up.
Where is the connection string for that CDS you selected?
So yeah, so it says here current environment. So based on the environment where you are, it would just connect that particular environment. That's why it is so easy. You don't have to hard code your connection string. Remember, if you're using Dynamics 365 connector, you have to hard code your string. That means if you deploy from dev to test, then you have to go in test and then change the connection. And then think about that you have to go in every flow, every action, and then change the connection. With CDS,
How
you don't have to do that.
how you deploy this?
You deploy this through solutions. You include this in the solution. So if you
Okay.
go to solution,
Okay.
so normally what I do is I don't create the apps from here. I create the apps from the solution. So I go to new, I go to app solution first, and then new app, and then Canvas app, and then even flows. Everything I'm creating it from the solution. Everything is part of solution, and then I just deploy the solution. Okay.
Okay. One more thing. You can declare variable on Canvas app, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Got it.
Was there a question?
No. I was just
Okay.
trying.
Okay. So now we have 20 minutes left, and let's see how much we can accomplish in 20 minutes. What I wanted to show is, now we saw how to invoke flows, we saw how to use connectors, right? But we don't have all the connectors. Let's say you have a custom web API, and then now I want to connect to my custom web API, right? And there are n number of scenarios where we can add a wrapper, right? So let's say we have a situation where client wants to connect to HubSpot, right? Vikram is familiar with HubSpot, um, and they want to do some updates or creates in HubSpot. Now, there, I'm not sure if there is a connector available for HubSpot. Let's search. So there's no connector for HubSpot, but HubSpot is another kind of a CRM. So it's same. It has sales module, marketing module, similar to what CRM has, but in a different way. So let's say that that or say XYZ is where we want to connect, where we want to create or update a data, but we don't have a connector. So how would you do that? So from integration perspective, what would you do? You would create a wrapper web API, and then that web API would be accessing, because HubSpot or that XYZ has a web API of its own, but we don't have connectors. So what we would do is we would create a custom web API, write our logic to create or update the data in that XYZ application. And then if you're writing a web API, we need to consume that web API in the app, right? So what I've done here is I've created a web API, a simple web API with values, and which on get it gives me two values, value 1 and value 2. And if you pass an ID, then it just returns a value. That's it. Pretty simple. I just wanted to do this for the demo purpose, right? So, and then I've published this to my Azure because I need to host my web API somewhere, right? So I've hosted it in Azure in a free plan. So I'm getting charged $0. See, it is using a free plan. And my connector, as you can see, has a lot of web APIs. One of the web APIs get API values. So my get API values gives me two data, value 1 and value 2, whereas my specific value ID API returns me just value. That's it. Okay. So I've created my web API. I've created all the logic. Now, how do I build a connector? So I go to custom connector. And I click on new. Now, when I click on new, I get some options. Create from blank, create from Azure service, open API. I'm not sure if you're familiar with open API, but it's a Swagger. So Swagger, if you're using Swagger, then Swagger is open API. Okay. Open API from URL. If you're deploying it in Swagger hub, then you can directly import the custom connector from Swagger hub. Or Postman. Now, I'm not familiar if you know about Postman. Are you familiar with Postman? Minalis, I know Sudhakar, you use Postman.
Yeah, a lot.
I don't know if Vikram, Srini, are you familiar with Postman?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Not me.
Okay, so Postman is a nice tool to test your web APIs or any kind of API services or any kind of services that you're calling, right? So it's pretty easy. So what you do is, so what I've done here is I've created, so let me start this. So you log in, you have to log into your account and everything, search for Postman, get it installed. Once it's a free tool, yes. And then you click on the app tab, and then you based on the documentation provided. So in my documentation, I'm providing, okay, it's a get method, and then it has this is my URL with the API / values. So that is what I've given. This is my URL / API / values. And there's no authorization. It is an open API just for simplifications. And I do send. Okay, so I get the value. Pretty straightforward, right? It's not like Fiddler. Fiddler you can actually trace into and then see what's going on in the backend, but this is just for testing, right? So now I got these values. So the easiest way to create custom connectors is by using this method. This is from my own experience that I have felt is the easiest way is to make sure that your API is working in Postman. So if say you have authorization or you have bearer tokens and all those fancy authentication stuff, then you put all those fancy authentication stuff here. Make sure that your web API calls are working properly in this Postman. If it's a post method, then you do a post method, whatever it is, make sure it is working here properly. Once it is working properly, then you go and save it. Okay, you click on save. Once you click on save, you go and create a collection. Okay, and then you name your collection, say Dan test custom. Okay, so I've given my connection name. Okay, and then this is my request name. So I'm adding this request to this custom connector, and then I'll say save to Dan connector. I can do multiple requests as well. So I'll also add the other one. So I'll add one more tab, add a request, do a send, see what it responds. So it responds back value, and then status code is this 200. So I'll do the same thing, save, select this, right? Select this collection and then add this request to the same collection. So now in that collection, I have two requests. So if I expand this collection, I have two requests. Okay, then I click on these three dots and I say export. Now here export, you have various recommendation is 2.1, but currently when you create a custom connector, Postman is and if you're using this Postman collection option, it only gives you one option, that is version 1.0. So select version 1.0 and then say export. And then you save it. So I'll save it in my downloads for now. And then your collection was exported. Now I go back. I say import Postman collection, and then I'll give collection name. And then I'll click on import, go to my downloads. Dentist. Okay, there you go. Dentist, open. And then here is my collection, and then I'll say continue. So what it did is it took that collection and then it created a connection. Now you have to go through the connection steps. So this is your general general information. If you want to change, if you want to upload an icon, if you want to change the background color, whatever you want to do, you can do that. Here it automatically took the HTTPS and your site name. Now this is my site name. Then I'll go to security. Now because I have not, when I built my Postman, I did not provide any authorization, right? So it took no authentication. But if you say if you have bearer token or whatever your authentication is, it would automatically understand that authentication type and then populate it over here. But you can also change it if you want to. Okay, then you go to definition. Now, because I added two methods, it took two methods, but I have to configure those methods. So here, operation ID is value, and visibility is none. And then here is my request, and here is my response. And now response, you have to click on the response to go inside the response. And then you can see that the response here, it is only supporting as key body output. We can change this. We can say edit. And then it's going to return me, I forgot what it's going to. Yeah, I need to see the definition. So it's returning me, actually this is not the right. This won't work because it needs a JSON format. And this is not a JSON format. Yeah, name value pairs. JSON is always name value pairs. So let's keep it as is. But basically you go here and then you say edit, and then you give your name and then what type of value it's going to return. So basically you're creating a name and then the type, uh, the data type, name and data type. So if you have multiple um, values written in the object, then you would build your response. Now, because my response is not in the correct JSON format, it's not gonna work. But sometimes it also detects the response and automatically builds this out for you, so you don't have to do it. You go back. So response is fixed. So now we go and do a test. So now once you go to test, it says you must create the custom connector before testing. So now create custom connector. Definition. Oh, right. I didn't fix this. So this is my get values, right? So I'm gonna say get all values. This is gonna be get value. So single value. And then the request is gonna be a value. So it's gonna take this as a parameter. I'll show you that as well. So get value and then get values. Create connector. Okay, so the custom connector has been successfully created. Now let's go and test it. Okay, so for testing, first you need to, so there are three parts to it. First thing is you need to create your connector. Connector is your data set. Then you create a connection. Connection is the way you would be connecting to the data set to pull the data. So that's why you have these connectors and then you have connections. And similarly, how I was adding that SharePoint site multiple times. I did documents, then I added documents underscore one. Both of those were actually connections. Okay. To the same data source. I'm going to create a connection. What happened over here? Let's try again. For some reason it was not working from there. So I had to go in custom connector and then click on that add button, which added the connection for me. So I can go in the edit again, go to test. So now this connection is available for me to test. And now I can pick any method I want. So if I'm picking get all values, I can say test operations. And it gave me the response. So my response is this. If I go to get values and say test operation, and it's giving me a response of this value. Okay. Now, once we have the connector and the connection, now the connection is already existing over here. We can go in our app and then just let's refresh this. Any questions till this loads? Or was this too much to grasp?
No, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think.
You have to go through this, right?
Yeah.
So if you see this today, and then if you're not going to use it, then you are going to forget it. So that's why I'm recommending that as soon as you see something, as soon as you learn something, go and try it out at least twice, right? That's when it would get embedded in your head. Okay, it's taking time to load. Yeah, the Postman collection, making that collection and creating the connector, it's little, for the first time, even for me, it was a little tricky. But now I've been creating connectors. So now it's a regular process for me. So that's what I'm saying, that if you try to use it more, then it would be easy. But anyway, so going back to the connectors, you can see that now I have access to this Dan test custom connector. Same thing, but this time we'll add a button again. Okay. And then on this select, I'm going to add this, and it does the same thing again. And there you go. It added with the name of the connector. If I add it again, then it would do _1. Same thing. This is a name that you would be using. So Dan test custom connector, and then now you can see that these two methods are available for you. So so if I do dot, I'll get these two methods, and this method doesn't take anything. Now if I do dot, because my response is I've not configured my response, I won't get anything. But if you configure a response in such a way that it returns you a proper JSON format with a name and value pair, then you would also get a response over here. So if you do dot and then name or dot XYZ, whatever the name of the in the yeah, in the connector, when you are configuring it, you are actually configuring the response with an with title. So if you go here, when you say edit, and you set title value 1, and this would be a string, and string as string, so nothing over here. So it would give you this as the response. So it would, that once you invoke that method and then you say dot, then it would say dot value 1. So whatever you give over here would come over there. Okay, and get value, also same thing. Yeah. Any questions? If there are no questions, then I think so that's about it for today. How did you like today's session? Did you learn something? Any
Yeah.
suggestions for?
Definitely a lot.
Yeah.
So we did SharePoint connectors, and then we did connectors, and then we did yeah. See, I'm trying to recollect everything that we did, and I'm stumbling.
Yes. Yeah. So everything else would be like straightforward, at least like the flows, the the connectors, like the regular connectors. The only tricky part would be the custom connectors. So try that out first, right? See what you get into. Like we had issues with connectors for authentication. So authentication, whenever there's a and every client would have single sign-on, right, or MFA enabled. So all those things, if any client has MFA enabled, so you have to take care of those authentication in the API. And the API in Azure, what you could do is you could have a single sign-on enabled on your connectors, on your API. So you create an API, host it in Azure, make it a single sign-on URL or API, and then once you configure your connector, you don't have to do anything. It takes it by default. It takes single sign-on. It's that easy. The only piece that you would have to build is your custom connector. Oh, sorry, what you have to build is your web API, and then configuring your web API on Azure. But creating a connector is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. Yeah. Well, that's it. So talk to you tomorrow, or maybe next week. Tomorrow we have a session tomorrow.
We have actually 3 sessions. We have tomorrow and Friday. I was also confused.
Yes. So the reason why I had to do that is because I'm on leave starting 17th, and then I'm out of country for 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks. So I wanted to finish these sessions before I leave. Otherwise, if there's a gap in between, then you might forget, right? What we did, what we didn't. If there's a link, then you start remembering things. You start collecting things what we did in previous sessions, and then there's a continuous pace going on. Right. So that's what I was thinking. But if it is too much, then let me know, and then I can always schedule some sessions on later on, like after my vacations.
Yeah, I just won't be on Friday. So next week it's 4 days. And this week it's today, tomorrow, and Friday. So I won't be there just on Friday. If you have others, and like you can continue, you can record it. If not, you can just reschedule the Friday thing alone.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, see based on how many are available here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Yep. Bye.
Hey, Danish, do we have these video recordings available?
Yes. So Shrini, I have to talk to you about that.
Hmm.
So let me first stop recording.